My name is Ava Collins, I'm 28, and I finally thought I had my life under control. After years of living paycheck to paycheck, things were finally looking up. I had clients who paid on time, my fridge wasn't empty for once, and I was finally breathing without counting every dollar. Then one Saturday, my mom and brother showed up unannounced. No hugs, no smiles, just tension in the air. Mom looked me dead in the eye and said, "Ava, we need to talk about family responsibilities." Then came the bombshell. "We'll need $3,900 from you. Every month." Ethan leaned back with that smug grin that said he knew I wouldn't fight it. But I wasn't that same broke, scared girl anymore. This time, I wasn't going to be guilted into saving everyone else while they drained me dry. That day, they thought they came for my money. Instead, they got something they'll never forget. Would you have helped them or taught them a lesson? Comment below, hit like if you've ever had to say no to family pressure, and subscribe for the full story. I tried to laugh it off at first, thinking Mom was exaggerating. But she wasn't. She came prepared like she was about to close a deal, folders in hand, highlighted spreadsheets, even a pen with her real estate company's logo on it. Ethan followed behind her like her smug little assistant, wearing sunglasses indoors and carrying a cup of coffee he didn't pay for. They sat down like they owned the place. My couch, my space, my peace all suddenly invaded. Mom crossed her legs, adjusted her pearls, and started talking numbers. She had even written Ava's contribution plan at the top of the page. "We just need $3,900 a month," she said matter-of-factly. "That'll help cover your brother's expenses and some family debt. You're doing so well now. You can handle it." Ethan grinned, leaning back like he was enjoying a movie. "Come on, Ava. Don't be dramatic. You've been living it up since you got that new job. It's your turn to help." I stared at them both, my stomach twisting. What debt? And why should I pay for Ethan's expenses? He's 31. He can work. Mom's eyes sharpened. "You don't talk to your family like that. You wouldn't even have your career if it weren't for us. We helped you through college, remember? You owe us." The word "oh" cracked through me like thunder. I remembered all those nights in college eating instant noodles, picking up extra design gigs, working late at coffee shops while Mom called to ask if I could spare a little from my part-time job for Ethan's tuition. And now, years later, she was still defending him, her golden boy who'd never kept a job longer than 6 months. When I didn't respond, Mom smiled thinly and pushed the papers toward me. "Don't make this difficult. Just sign so we can move forward as a family." It took everything in me to keep my voice steady. "You need to leave." Her smile vanished. Ethan scoffed and muttered, "Here we go again. The ungrateful phase." I stood my ground. "Get out." Mom rose slowly, fixing her purse strap with that icy calm that always came before the storm. She glanced around my living room, her gaze pausing on the framed photo of Dad and me at my college graduation. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You've changed, Ava. I don't even recognize you anymore." Then, as she reached for the door, she added something so soft I almost thought I imagined it. "If she won't share, we'll take what's ours." The door closed behind them, and for a few seconds, the silence rang louder than her voice that I stood there frozen, heart pounding. My apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt invaded. I wanted to believe it was just her anger talking, but my gut told me otherwise. That night, I tried to distract myself by finishing a project for a client. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with 2 notifications. New login alert, bank account accessed. New login alert, shared account accessed. My blood ran cold. That old shared account was something Mom and I had used when I was in college, a safety net I had forgotten even existed. It still had links to one of my savings accounts. I changed my passwords immediately, locked my accounts, and shut my laptop. My hands were trembling. It was too specific to be random. She wouldn't, would she? I needed air. I stepped outside, barefoot, the cool night breeze hitting my face like a slap of clarity. Across the fence, my neighbor, Liam Hayes, was standing under his porch light. He was quiet, reserved, always polite when we crossed paths, but tonight he looked different. His jaw was tight, eyes scanning the dark street before settling on me. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, though my voice caught when I tried to answer. "Yeah. Just family drama." He gave a half smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Family can be the worst kind of thieves." The words hung between us, strange and pointed. Then he added, "You might want to check your locks." I blinked. "Why?" He tilted his head slightly. "Because your mom was here earlier. And while you were inside arguing, your brother was in your backyard by the window." My stomach dropped. "What?" Liam's eyes were serious now. Didn't want to interfere, but I saw him slip around the side. "I figured you should know." For a moment, everything went still in the air, my thoughts, even the faint sound of crickets in the distance. I turned toward my house, suddenly aware of every unlocked window, every key I'd left lying around. When I finally looked back, Liam was still watching me, his expression unreadable. "People who feel entitled to your life," he said quietly, "don't stop until you make them." I didn't know what he meant then, but later I would. Because that night wasn't just the start of a family argument. It was the beginning of a line I couldn't uncross, the moment I stopped being their daughter and became their target. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy, metallic feeling in my chest that comes when you just know something isn't right. The kind of feeling that crawls under your skin and sits there, waiting. I grabbed my phone, opened my banking app, and started scrolling through my transactions. There it was. A pending transfer. $3,900. The exact number my mother had demanded the day before. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My first thought was that maybe I had made the mistake somehow, maybe I had clicked something accidentally in my sleep-deprived haze last night. But when I tapped the details, my blood went cold. The recipient's name was familiar. It was hers. I sat down on the edge of the bed, heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. The bank support line felt like it rang forever before someone picked up. I explained the situation, voice shaking, trying to sound calm while my whole world tilted sideways. The woman on the other end asked for verification, then said, almost casually, "The request came from a linked profile. It looks like a family access account." I pressed my palm against my forehead. I never linked anyone to that account. Not my mother, not anyone. There was a pause, and the woman said softly, "Then someone did it without your permission." After the call, I sat there for a long time just staring at the wall, realizing this wasn't some emotional argument anymore. My own mother had actually tried to take from me. By afternoon, I couldn't sit still. I was pacing the front yard, clutching my phone, rehearsing what I'd say if she called. But it wasn't her voice I heard, it was Liam's. He was leaning against the fence again, holding a cup of coffee, watching me the way someone watches a bomb that's about to go off. He must have read the panic all over my face. "You look like someone just stole your world," he said. I let out a shaky laugh. "Something like that." He reached into his jacket pocket and handed me a business card. "Before you say anything, no, I'm not just some nosy neighbor. I'm a financial investigator. I work with small businesses and families who've dealt with fraud." I blinked, looking at the card. His name is printed in bold letters, Liam Hayes, Financial Forensics Consultant. "I don't want to assume," he continued, "but if someone in your circle is moving money, there'll be trials. Family or not." The last part hit hard. Family or not. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that my mother wouldn't cross that line. But the evidence was already staring me in the face. That night, I opened my old email archives, the ones I hadn't checked in years. I searched my mom's name, but there was nothing suspicious. Then, almost by accident, I noticed something else. An old contact labeled Aunt Marie. I didn't have an Aunt Marie. Curiosity prickled at me. When I opened the thread, I felt the blood drain from my face. It was from 2 years ago. The sender had used an email I recognized as my mother's, but she had disguised the name. Attached to the message was a digital loan application, and my social security number was right there on the form. The loan had been approved, and the signature, mine, had been forged. I pushed the chair back from my desk so fast it hit the wall. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit on them just to stop them from trembling. I whispered out loud, "She used my identity." And then the questions came crashing in. How long has this been going on? How many times had she used my information without me knowing? Was I even safe from my own family? By the time night fell, my mind was spinning. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't even showered. I just sat there, reading and rereading that email, feeling like the floor had been pulled out from under me. Around 10, my phone rang. Liam's name flashed across the screen. When I answered, his tone was serious, almost urgent. "Ava, I did a little digging. You might want to sit down for this." I sank into my chair, gripping the phone tighter. "Your brother's name," he continued, "is listed on that same loan. As a co-beneficiary. Which means he knew. Maybe even helped." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean helped?" He hesitated before saying the next part. "It gets worse. I traced the bank routing number used for the loan deposit. The funds were moved recently into a corporate account. Your dad's old company. The one your mom said she shut down after his death." My throat felt tight. "That company doesn't exist anymore." "It does now," Liam said quietly. "Your mom's been moving assets into it again. Big amounts. Consistent transfers every month." I couldn't even speak. The sound of my heartbeat filled the silence between us. Finally, Liam added, "Ava, I think she's using that company to hide money. And you're part of the paper trail." For a long time, I didn't move. I couldn't. I just sat there staring into the dark, the glow of my laptop screen lighting the email that had changed everything. It hit me that I wasn't just being stolen from. I was being erased, rewritten, folded into something my mother had built behind my back. And the worst part wasn't that I didn't see it coming, it was that deep down, I'd always known she was capable of it. When Mom called 2 days later asking me to come over, she sounded calm. Too calm. Her voice had that syrupy tone she used when she wanted something but didn't want me to know it yet. She said, "Let's talk things out as a family, Ava. You're overreacting. It's all just a misunderstanding." Every part of me screamed not to go, but I went anyway. I told myself it was to get closure, to clear things up. But deep down, I think I just wanted to see if maybe I was wrong about her, if there was still a version of my mother who wouldn't betray me. Her house looked the same, but colder somehow. The living room was spotless, like she'd prepared it for guests. Cookies on a plate, a pot of tea steaming neatly on the table, the family photos arranged with perfect symmetry on the wall. It should have felt comforting, but it didn't. It felt staged. She smiled when she saw me, her lipstick a little too perfect, her posture too straight. "There's my girl," she said. "Come, sit." Ethan was already there, slouched on the couch beside her, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I walked in, smirked, and said, "You embarrassed Mom. You know. The way you've been acting, sending those accusations, calling the bank, it's pathetic." I ignored him and sat down, keeping my bag close to me. "You tried to transfer money from my account," I said, looking straight at Mom. "You used my social security number for a loan. That's fraud." For a split second, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes, a crack in her mask. But then she smiled, soft and patient, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Ava," she said gently, "that money helped you once, remember? When you were trying to start your business. You forget who stood by you. You forget what we sacrificed." I blinked, stunned. "You think that justifies stealing my identity?" Her tone sharpened. "I didn't steal anything. I took care of this family. I always have. You're the one turning your back on us now that you finally have something." Ethan chuckled and leaned back. "You're acting like some paranoid victim. Mom's right. You've changed." My jaw tightened. You mean I stopped being your ATM?
Mom's face hardened. What's your tone? I stood up, shaking my head. You both need to understand something. I'm not giving you a cent.
And if you touch my accounts again, I'll press charges. Ethan's smirk faded just long enough for me to see the flash of anger underneath. As I turned toward the door, he muttered under his breath, "You really think you can handle what happens next?"
It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise.
I left without another word, my hands trembling on the steering wheel all the way home. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sky had gone gray, and that same unease from before came crawling back. I locked every door and window, changed my passwords, and still couldn't shake the feeling that something worse was coming.
Around midnight, my phone buzzed with an email alert. It was from the tax service I used for freelance work. Someone had requested a password reset.
I froze, staring at the screen.
My stomach twisted. They were trying again.
I stayed up all night after that, refreshing my accounts, changing everything I could.
Every sound outside made me jump.
When I finally dozed off just before dawn, it was more like collapsing than sleeping. The next morning, I went outside to grab my mail, still in my robe, half awake.
A plain white envelope sat on top of the pile. No stamp. No return address. My name is written neatly in blue ink.
I opened it on instinct, and my breath caught. Inside was a single photocopy of my birth certificate. But my father's name, David Collins, had been crossed out with a thick black marker. For a few seconds, I couldn't even move.
The world around me went completely still.
Then I noticed something else. Another name had been written faintly beneath the black line, just visible through the paper fibers, like someone had tried to erase it but couldn't quite make it disappear. It wasn't my father's handwriting. It wasn't his name. I dropped the envelope like it was burning my hands. And that was the moment I realized whatever was happening wasn't just about money anymore. My mother and brother weren't after cash. They were hiding something much deeper.
Something that could rewrite who I even was.
Liam showed up the next morning with 2 coffees and a look that told me things were about to get worse before they got better. We sat at my kitchen table, both leaning over the document I had received, the altered birth certificate. He'd brought his laptop, external drive, and something that looked like a portable scanner.
"This isn't random," he said quietly. "Someone wanted you to find this."
"But it's also a warning."
I stared at the paper.
"A warning for what?"
He looked up from the screen.
"To stop digging." He scanned the copy, and within minutes he traced a digital trail. It had been scanned and filed by a private notary 3 years ago. When he read the name aloud, my stomach dropped. It was the same notary listed on the fraudulent loan my mom had used with my social security number.
"Same person," Liam said.
"That's not a coincidence.
That means they've been building this for years. They are setting up something long-term.
If they can prove you're not a beneficiary, they can take control of your dad's trust."
For a moment, I couldn't breathe.
My father's trust had been the one thing left untouched after his death, protected by legal walls and clauses. It wasn't much, but it was his life's work, and he'd always said it was meant to secure my future. I whispered, "They are trying to erase me."
Liam didn't answer right away. His silence said enough.
That night, after he left, I sat on the couch, clutching the birth certificate. I tried to convince myself this was just another manipulation, that my mom wouldn't actually go that far.
But deep down, I knew she already had.
I called my aunt, my dad's sister, the only family member I still trusted. She answered on the second ring, her voice soft with surprise.
"Ava?
Honey, are you okay?"
"No," I said, my voice shaking. "I need to ask you something about Dad."
"Did he ever mention changing his will?"
There was a pause. Then she sighed.
"Oh, sweetheart, I hoped you'd never need to know that."
My fingers tightened around the phone. "No what?" "Your father did change it," she said.
"He told me he was making sure everything went directly to you, that it would be separate from your mother's access. But after the funeral, when I asked her about the new filing, she said there was no updated version. I thought she was lying, but I had no proof. The words hit me like a punch. You're saying she hid the real will?
Her voice cracked. Ava, your father was worried. He said your mother had been moving money without telling him.
He told me if anything ever happened to him, I should tell you to look for a file. He called it something simple, something that wouldn't draw attention.
I can't remember exactly.
I'm so sorry.
Tears blurred my vision.
My mother had hidden the truth for years, and my father had tried to protect me, even from her. After we hung up, I sat there in silence, the phone still in my hand. The house felt too quiet, too still, like even the air was holding its breath.
Liam came by that night when I told him what my aunt had said. He didn't hesitate. Then we find it, he said. The real will.
Wherever she buried it. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. We started searching through every possible place it could be, old boxes, files, storage bins, and folders my father had kept in the garage. Liam worked with methodical patience, scanning each page while I sifted through years of dust and memories. There were pictures from when I was little, old tax returns, invoices, and my dad's handwriting on scraps of paper. Every now and then, I'd stop to breathe in the scent of the paper, the faint smell of ink and oil that always reminded me of him.
Hours passed. Midnight came and went.
My eyes ached from reading old letters under the yellow light of the desk lamp. At around 2 a.m, I reached for a box that had been wedged behind a shelf.
It was taped shut, edges worn.
In faded black marker, it read AC Holdings.
I frowned.
Liam, what's AC Holdings?
He looked up, rubbing his eyes.
Could be one of your dad's business accounts.
I peeled back the tape and opened the box.
Inside were thick folders, some marked with company names I didn't recognize.
My hands trembled as I pulled out one file. It was sealed, the paper yellowed at the edges. The handwriting on the front stopped me cold. It was my father's. In his neat, careful script, it said, "For Ava.
When she's ready to see the truth."
For a moment, I couldn't move. My throat closed up, and my vision blurred. Liam leaned forward. Ava, what is it?
I handed him the folder, still sealed, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Everything I had been searching for, every answer, every lie, every hidden piece of my father's story was sitting right there in my hands. But the fear of what it might reveal was worse than not knowing at all.
Still, I knew there was no turning back. Not after everything they'd done.
The folder trembled in my hands as I peeled it open, each page brittle with age. The first few sheets were typed official, notarized documents, but something was off.
It wasn't a full will. Just fragments.
Signatures without the witnesses' names. Dates that didn't line up. And tucked between them, a single handwritten amendment. Liam leaned closer, his eyes scanning quickly. Ava, look at this. In my father's distinct cursive, the note was clear. Company shares and business assets are to remain under my daughter's full authority, not her mother's. The words hit like thunder.
My breath caught in my throat.
That one sentence changed everything. It meant the trust, the company, and the control my mother thought she had. They were never hers. Liam sat back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. If this holds up legally, it could destroy her financially. She's been living off the company's dividends, right?
I nodded slowly.
Everything she has comes from Dad's company.
He sighed.
Then she's been living off your inheritance. The room felt colder. The truth was right in front of me, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a loss. Because for all the betrayal and lies, she was still my mother. The same woman who once brushed my hair before school, who made pancakes on Saturdays, who cried at Dad's funeral that I didn't know if I was ready to end her world, even if she'd tried to destroy mine. I stared at the amendment for a long time. Maybe, I thought, there was still a way to fix this, to talk, to find peace before everything went public. Maybe if she knew I wasn't out for revenge, she'd stop. False hope. I picked up my phone and called her. The line rang twice before she answered. Mom. A long pause.
No greeting. No warmth.
I found some of Dad's papers, I said softly. There's something you should see.
Silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard her take a breath.
You shouldn't have done that, she said flatly before I could respond. The line went dead. The wordless finality of it made my chest tighten. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. An hour later, I was still pacing when everything went dark. The lights, the hum of the refrigerator, even the soft buzz of the heater, all gone. My apartment was swallowed in silence. At first, I thought it was a blackout. But when I stepped outside into the hallway, the other apartments still had light. My stomach dropped. I went to the fuse box in the utility closet, flicking my phone flashlight on. The metallic smell of copper and insulation filled the air. When I opened the panel, I froze. The wires were sliced clean through, not pulled, not chewed. Cut. Someone had been here. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. I backed away slowly, locking the door behind me. I called Liam, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. He said he'd be there in 10 minutes. Before he arrived, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message preview flashed across my screen. You think you won? He wasn't the man you thought he was. I read it twice, each word colder than the last. Then another message came through. You're not ready for the truth. I stood there in the dark, phone light flickering across my face, the severed wires still exposed beside me. My father's voice echoed in my mind, his note in the folder, his careful handwriting. When she's ready to see the truth. I whispered into the silence. Dad, what did you do? Liam showed up at my door the next morning, coffee in one hand, a flash drive in the other. His expression told me everything. Whatever he'd found, it wasn't good. We sat at my kitchen table as the soft hum of my laptop filled the silence. He plugged in the drive, opened a series of encrypted folders, and said quietly, You need to see this. On the screen were dozens of wire transfers, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The accounts led to shell corporations scattered across 3 states. Each one connected back to my father's company. And at the bottom of the authorization chain, the same signature appeared again and again. My mother's. My throat went dry. She was running money through Dad's business. Liam nodded. 4 years. And the more I looked, the worse it got. He clicked through a spreadsheet, highlighting the last few entries. These accounts weren't just hers, Ava. Some of the withdrawals went directly to your brother. I leaned forward, heart pounding. Ethan? He nodded grimly. It's labeled as consulting payments. But your brother doesn't work for the company. He never has. The realization came in waves, each one heavier than the last. They'd used the company to fund themselves, vacations, cars, and fake investments. And all this time, I'd thought my father was the hero. The hard-working man who built everything from nothing. Liam's voice softened. Your dad must have known. I shook my head. He wouldn't. But the evidence said otherwise. His signature appeared beside hers on the oldest transfers. Not many, but enough to prove he'd seen what was happening. The man I'd spent my whole life idolizing had looked the other way. Maybe he'd done it out of love, or fear, or weakness. It didn't matter. He'd known. I sat back, numb. The folder with his handwriting, the one that once felt like a lifeline, now felt like a lie. How could the man who wrote for Ava, when she's ready to see the truth, have hidden something this big? Liam tried to reassure me. We can stop them. If we release this, your name is cleared. The assets can go back where they belong. False hope. His words sounded like justice, but all I heard was destruction. Exposing them would mean the company, my father's legacy would collapse. My family's name would be in headlines, and everything he built would turn to ash. I can't, I whispered. Not yet. He leaned back, studying me. Then someone else might. I didn't understand what he meant until the next morning. My phone rang just as I was pouring coffee. The number was unfamiliar, but local. I answered cautiously. Hello. A woman's voice came through, smooth and professional. Hi, this is Julia Myers from the Herald-Ledger. I wanted to give you a chance to comment before we run the story.
My stomach twisted.
What story?
She hesitated just a second too long.
We received documents alleging that you've been embezzling funds from your late father's company. I was hoping to verify some details with you.
My hand went cold around the mug.
What did you just say?
An anonymous source sent us everything, she continued.
Transaction histories, bank statements, even internal emails with your name on them.
My pulse roared in my ears.
Someone had flipped the story, turned me into the villain. Ms. Collins, the journalist said, do you have a statement? I hung up. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. The phone buzzed again with another unknown number, then another, and just before I shut it off, a text appeared. Consider this your warning. Family secrets don't stay buried forever.
When the story dropped, I didn't even know it was about me.
The notification popped up while I was making coffee, a generic alert from a news site I barely read.
But the headline froze me mid-pour.
Local designer under investigation for corporate embezzlement. Family distances themselves amid allegations. For a split second, my mind refused to connect the dots. The photo was blurred, the name half hidden behind the text preview. But then I saw it, Ava Collins, 28. My name, my age, my humiliation. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered against the counter. Coffee splashed everywhere, scalding my wrist, but I didn't even flinch. My eyes were glued to the screen. They'd used an old photo, one from a charity event I'd attended with my family years ago. My mother was beside me in that picture, smiling proudly. The same woman who'd now apparently given a quote to the journalist. We are shocked and heartbroken. Ava has always been independent, but sometimes people lose their way. We hope she finds the guidance she needs. Guidance. She turned my ruin into her redemption arc.
I scrolled down, numb.
The article referenced internal documents and bank statements that suggested I'd funneled money from my father's company into personal accounts. They even mentioned the fraudulent loan, the one she had taken out using my information. Except now, it was rewritten. According to the journalist, I had used my family's business as collateral for a personal loan.
It was masterful.
Every lie wrapped in a thread of truth. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing, not from friends checking in, but from clients canceling. Some sent polite apologies, others didn't bother. We're terminating our contract effective immediately. We'll revisit future work once this clears up. I was bleeding reputation in real time. And then, like gasoline on a fire, my mother posted on Facebook. A perfectly composed, public message. This has been a devastating time for our family. I raised my daughter to be honest, but sometimes people make mistakes. Please respect our privacy as we process this betrayal.
She ended it with a prayer emoji.
Within an hour, it had hundreds of likes. Neighbors commented about how strong she was. Old family friends sent virtual hugs. Someone even wrote, "You did your best, Linda." Kids these days don't understand loyalty. Loyalty. I locked myself in my bathroom, sat on the floor, and stared at the tiles. The sound of my phone vibrating against the counter was constant. The world was moving on without me, believing her version. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out from the inside. That's when Liam texted.
"Check your email.
Urgent."
I opened the file he sent.
An audio recording, a bar's background noise, laughter, clinking glasses. And then Ethan's voice, clear and sharp. She really thought she could ghost Mom forever.
Nah, we taught her a lesson.
Mom said to make her look bad, not destroy her, but honestly, she deserves it. She stole from us first, right?
Now she knows what it feels like. My throat tightened.
The room spun. Don't worry, Ethan continued, his voice smug. We shifted the story before she could even react. I even talked to that journalist myself. Told her we've been worried for months.
Poor Mom.
You should have seen the sympathy she got. Every word was a dagger. I played it again. Then again.
Each replay carved deeper into me. I wanted to throw my phone, to scream, but all I could do was sit there trembling. They hadn't just betrayed me, they'd rehearsed it, crafted it, sold it to the world. When I finally called Liam, my voice cracked. This is enough to ruin them, right?
Please tell me this is enough.
He sighed quietly. Not yet. It's emotional, but not legal.
You need evidence that connects your mom to the fraud.
I closed my eyes, exhaustion weighing heavy. She forged a loan.
Isn't that enough?
He hesitated. Not if she can spin it as you are giving permission. Families get away with this all the time. You need a clear trail.
Something even a lawyer can't twist.
For a fleeting moment, I thought maybe I could handle this.
Maybe with Liam's help, I could fight back. But beneath that spark of hope was fear that my family had been planning this for longer than I could imagine.
Hours passed in silence. I didn't eat. I barely moved. Then, around midnight, Liam called again.
Ava, he said, his tone urgent. You're not going to believe this. He explained that he'd gone through my father's old briefcase again, the same one we thought would emptied weeks ago. The lining felt uneven, so he carefully cut it open. Hidden inside, taped to the wood frame, was a small flash drive wrapped in paper.
My heart started racing.
What's on it?
Dozens of files, he said.
Audio logs, documents, but one of them stands out. It's labeled clause.mp3. The word felt heavy, familiar, like something my father had once mentioned but I couldn't place. Liam played it over speaker. My father's voice filled the line, rough, weary, but unmistakably his. If anything happens, the truth is in the clause.
A rustle, then silence. I didn't even realize I was crying until Liam spoke again. He must have recorded that before he died.
Maybe he knew what was coming.
The truth is in the clause.
I repeated it over and over like a prayer I didn't understand. What clause?
I whispered. Liam hesitated. It could mean anything.
A legal clause, a will, maybe something in his company's charter.
But Ava, his voice softened.
If this is what I think it is, your father was trying to protect you. Or at least leave you a way out. I wiped my face with my sleeve, my chest aching.
And if I find it?
Then you win, he said simply. Not just the case of your life back.
I wanted to believe him.
But even as he spoke, I couldn't shake the weight of everything I'd lost, my reputation, my peace, my family. The home I grew up in felt like an open wound I could never go back to. I sat in the dark for hours after the call ended. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked unfamiliar, hollow eyes, shaky hands, a woman who'd spent her life trying to earn love from people who only saw her as a resource. That's when another notification buzzed across my phone. A text from an unknown number. Nice move with the audio. Too bad it's not enough. He left you more secrets than love.
I stared at the message, the words blurring.
Then came another one, seconds later. If you want answers, look at his last business clause.
No signature. No clue who sent it.
The truth is in the clause.it was like the universe was mocking me. I looked up at the ceiling, my voice trembling. Dad, what did you leave behind? Outside, thunder rumbled low across the night sky. The storm rolled closer, pressing against my windows like a warning. And for the first time in my life, I realized this wasn't just about family anymore. It was about legacy, lies, and whatever my father had buried so deep he had to leave clues for me to find. Somewhere in that clause, hidden between ink and betrayal, was the truth that could burn them all or destroy me first.
For 2 days straight, Liam and I barely slept.
We went through every file on that flash drive, every document my father had ever drafted, every line of corporate jargon that looked like English but felt like code. Somewhere in those words, I knew, was the truth my father had tried to leave for me. It was hidden inside a long, tedious legal amendment labeled Addendum 4B Contingency Clause. At first, it looked like nothing, a generic line about asset reallocation in cases of breach or coercion.
But Liam caught something I didn't. He zoomed in on the fine print and pointed. See that line? It said,
"In the event of proven fraud, coercion, or manipulation affecting the integrity of the Collins estate or its successors, full ownership rights revert to the lawful heir Ava Collins."
I blinked at it, barely breathing.
Revert to me.
Liam nodded slowly. Your father created a built-in safeguard.
If anyone ever tried to manipulate his estate, your mother, your brother, anyone, it automatically reverts to you.
All of it.
For a moment, my brain went blank.
The company, the house, the remaining assets.
Every piece of the legacy my mother had twisted into her personal empire. I finally whispered, "So that's the clause."
He leaned back in his chair.
That's the clause. The room was silent except for the faint hum of his old desktop fan. I wanted to feel relief, wanted to believe this was my father's way of protecting me, even from beyond the grave.
But all I could feel was betrayal.
Low point. The realization hit me like a slow, cold wave.
Mom knew.
She had to. That's why she'd shown up demanding money. Why she'd played the role of the fragile, heartbroken parent online. Why she'd tried to keep me entangled financially so I wouldn't have time to dig. She'd been stalling me.
Controlling me.
Keeping me quiet while she held her grip on everything. I sank into my chair, my hands shaking.
She knew the whole time, I said quietly. She knew what Dad left for me.
She just needed me distracted long enough to make sure I'd never find it.
Liam didn't argue. He just nodded, jaw tight, watching me piece together the kind of truth that changes everything.
For years, I thought I was the problem. The daughter who never fit, the one who refused to smile through family dinners or keep the peace after my father's death.
But now, I saw the truth in full color. I was never the black sheep. I was the threat. Liam finally broke the silence.
You can win this, Ava.
File it.
End it now before they twist the story again. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase, a drafted filing form that could officially register the clause in probate court. Once filed, everything my father left would be legally secured in my name.
It should have felt like victory.
But I just sat there, staring at the pen in my hand, my stomach in knots. Liam, I said softly, what happened to her?
He hesitated.
If she's found complicit in fraud, she could lose everything. Maybe even face charges. And Ethan? Depends on what we can prove.
My throat closed.
I didn't want to destroy them, not completely. Despite everything, they were still my blood.
I wanted justice, not ashes. Liam saw my hesitation and leaned forward. She ruined your name, Ava. Stole your identity.
Used your dead father's company to launder money. You don't owe her grace.
He was right. But my heart didn't care.
I pressed my palms to my face, breathing hard. I'd spent my whole life wanting my mother's approval, my brother's respect. And now that I had the power to finally take back what was mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to become the very thing they accused me of, ruthless. Before I could respond, a knock shattered the silence. Liam and I froze. It was 9:42 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came again, louder this time. I walked slowly to the door, the floorboards creaking beneath my bare feet. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. Ethan. He looked nothing like the smug, self-assured brother I'd grown up with. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt, not his usual pressed button-ups. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain on. What do you want? He didn't answer right away. His hands were trembling. Mom's in trouble. The words barely registered. What are you talking about? He ran a hand through his hair, glancing over his shoulder like someone was following him. Please, Ava. Don't go to court. You don't know what's happening. I frowned. What did you do? I didn't do anything, he said quickly. It's Mom. He swallowed hard. She's losing it. After that journalist called asking for follow-up, she started panicking. She said she had to fix it before you filed anything.
I felt my pulse quicken. Fix what?
He looked at me, eyes wide with fear. The claws.
She knew about it.
She's been trying to destroy the last copy.
My stomach twisted. How? That clause was in Dad's files.
It's done.
He shook his head frantically. No.
There's still an original with the notary.
She's going there tonight.
Please, Ava, she's not thinking straight. I glanced at Liam, who had stepped closer, his expression grave. Ava, we should call the police. But before I could even reach for my phone, distant sirens echoed from outside. Flashing red and blue lights cut through my window blinds. Ethan turned toward the noise, his voice breaking. Oh God.
I pushed past him and stepped onto the porch.
Down the street, 2 police cars were parked in front of my mother's house. Neighbors stood on their lawns, whispering, phones out. The air felt heavy, electric. For a moment, everything went quiet, the kind of stillness that comes right before your life changes forever.
Ethan's voice was barely a whisper behind me.
They are here for her. And that's when I realized the clause hadn't just been a legal safeguard.
It was a trigger. My father hadn't written it to protect me.
He'd written it to make sure that when the truth came out, the real truth, the people who betrayed him couldn't hide behind his name.
Mom had known that.
And now, the consequences had finally arrived at her door. I stood there frozen on my porch, the lights flashing against the night sky, Ethan's voice breaking beside me, and one thought echoing in my mind.
The truth was finally out, but what if it destroyed us all? The news hit before sunrise.
My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, texts, calls, headlines. Local businesswoman arrested for corporate fraud. Ex-CEO's widow accused of forgery.
I couldn't breathe as I watched the morning broadcast. There she was. My mother.
Hands cuffed behind her back, eyes empty, lips pressed tight like she was holding on to the last shred of dignity she had left.
Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted.
The woman who'd spent her whole life controlling the story had finally lost control of it. Mom had been arrested for falsifying documents. Someone had tipped the police, sending them a full digital record of her fake invoices, false transfers, and signed letters she'd forged in my father's name. The footage played on repeat until I shut the TV off. The sound of it burned in my ears, the sirens, the shouted questions, the chaos. For the first time, I felt no anger.
Just a deep, hollow ache in my chest.
A few hours later, Ethan showed up again. This time, he didn't look scared.
He looked broken.
His eyes were red, his face pale.
He didn't even knock.
He just walked in and sat on my couch, staring at the floor. She called me before they took her, he whispered. She said it was all my fault.
I stayed quiet. I didn't know what to say. He let out a shaky breath. It wasn't supposed to go this far.
I just wanted to protect her.
I turned slowly to look at him.
Protect her from what? From the truth.
He rubbed his face with his hands. You don't understand.
She was scared, Ava. After Dad died, she said everything would fall apart if we didn't hold it together. She did what she had to do.
No, I said quietly.
She did what she wanted to do. He looked up at me, eyes full of tears. You think this feels good for me? Watching her taken away in handcuffs? Watching her life burn down? I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream.
But all I could feel was sick.
This wasn't a victory. It was grief in disguise. The guilt hit me like a wave.
I never wanted this. I never wanted to destroy my family.
I just wanted to stop the lies before they swallowed me whole. I sat beside Ethan, my voice barely a whisper.
We could have fixed this.
We could have done it differently. He looked at me, his expression crumbling. It's too late now. And he was right. The family name that once meant everything to them, the Collins reputation, the picture-perfect legacy had collapsed overnight. Every secret they'd built their lives around had finally cracked open. And I was standing in the ruins of it. By evening, the street outside my apartment was quiet again. Reporters had stopped calling. The world had already moved on to the next scandal. But I couldn't.
I was stuck in that awful silence that comes after the storm. Liam came over with takeout and 2 cups of coffee. He didn't say much at first.
He just sat across from me at the kitchen table, watching me stare at the headlines on my phone.
I didn't want this, I said finally. I didn't want revenge.
I just wanted peace.
He set his cup down and leaned forward. His voice was calm but heavy.
Peace doesn't come free, Ava.
I looked up at him.
What's that supposed to mean?
He didn't answer.
He just exhaled slowly, as if the truth itself weighed too much. I studied his face, the lines of exhaustion, the shadows under his eyes.
Something about him felt different.
There was a quiet sadness I hadn't noticed before, the kind that comes from carrying something you shouldn't. Liam, I said carefully, tell me you didn't have anything to do with this.
He hesitated just a fraction too long. That was all it took. My stomach dropped. It was you, wasn't it?
You're the one who tipped them off.
He didn't deny it.
He just looked at me, his expression unreadable.
I had to, he said finally.
They were going to destroy you. The moment you filed that clause, your mother was planning to pin everything on you. Ethan was supposed to testify against you in exchange for immunity.
I stared at him, unable to process the words.
You leaked it.
He nodded once.
I sent the files to the police before they could frame you. I didn't want to hurt you, Ava. I just couldn't let them take you down.
False hope shattered.
For a second, I didn't know whether to thank him or scream. Do you even understand what you've done? I whispered. You didn't just expose them, you destroyed my family.
He looked at me with that same quiet sadness.
They destroyed themselves long before I got involved. I turned away, tears burning behind my eyes. I hated that he was right. I hated that I couldn't hate him. The air between us went heavy. The ticking of the clock felt too loud. He stood slowly, reaching into his jacket pocket. I didn't want to tell you like this, he said. But you need to see something.
He handed me a plain white envelope. My name was written on it in his handwriting.
I hesitated, staring at it. What is this?
He didn't answer.
My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single photograph, fold, slightly faded. It was my father,
smiling.
And beside him, arms slung casually around his shoulder, was Liam. They were standing outside what looked like the old company headquarters, both wearing suits, both looking like men who shared more than just a professional bond. I looked up, my voice cracking. You knew him?
Liam's jaw tightened. He was my mentor. Your father took me under his wing when I was starting out. He saved my career.
He used to talk about you all the time, and said you were smarter than all of them. Said one day, you'd need someone who wasn't afraid to protect you. I blinked, trying to steady my breathing. So all this time.
He nodded.
I promised him I'd look out for you, no matter what it took. The photo slipped from my fingers and landed softly on the table. The world around me blurred, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint noise of traffic outside, the sound of my own heartbeat. Nothing felt real. The man who had appended my life, the one person I thought was just helping me, had been connected to my father all along. Every warning, every late-night conversation, every carefully timed discovery, it hadn't been a coincidence. It had been part of something much deeper. Liam stepped closer, his voice low. Your father wasn't perfect, Ava. But he saw what was coming. He knew they'd come for you someday. He made me promise that if that day ever came, I'd make sure the truth came out, no matter what it cost. I looked at him, my voice barely audible. And what did it cost, Liam? He didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he looked back once, his face unreadable. The truth always costs more than we think. The door closed behind him. I sat there in the dim kitchen light, staring at the photo, at the man I'd loved like a friend, and the father I thought I'd lost long ago. And as the weight of everything pressed down on me, one haunting question echoed in my mind. If my father had trusted Liam to protect me, what else had he known that I didn't? When Liam came back, it wasn't with apologies or explanations. It was with the truth. We sat across from each other in a quiet diner outside the city. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that smelled burnt but somehow comforting. He looked tired, older, like he'd been carrying this confession for years. He told me his father used to be my dad's business partner. They had built the company together from scratch, late nights, big dreams, everything on the line. But when my mother took over after Dad's death, she pushed Liam's father out. Quietly, ruthlessly. The fraud that later destroyed the company had started right after that.
She ruined him, Liam said softly, stirring his coffee but never drinking it.
He lost everything.
His career, his reputation, even his will to fight. He died believing your family had buried him alive. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, trying to process what it meant.
So that's why you helped me, I said finally. Not out of loyalty.
Out of revenge.
He shook his head.
At first, maybe. But it changed. You're not her, Ava. You never were.
I felt betrayed all over again.
Every step of my fight for truth had been tangled in someone else's war. Every person I trusted had an angle, a wound, a reason.
And I was the last one to see it. When the court hearing came, I sat alone.
Mom didn't show.
Ethan didn't either.
It was just me, a row of lawyers, and the sound of a gavel that felt like thunder in my chest.
The ruling was clear. My name was cleared of all charges.
The court recognized the fraudulent documents and restored my father's estate, every asset, every share, every piece that had been stolen from me. I won, but it didn't feel like winning.
Liam found me outside the courthouse afterward.
He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, the autumn wind whipping through his hair.
You did it, he said quietly. No, I replied.
You did. He smiled faintly, but there was sadness in his eyes. Maybe now my father can rest.
I didn't know whether to thank him or walk away. So I did both. I nodded once and left without looking back. I sold the house. Packed my things in silence. Moved somewhere no one knew my name.
I started designing again, this time under a new business, one that wasn't tied to any legacy but my own. Sometimes, when the nights get quiet, I think about Liam.
About my parents.
About the way truth can free you and break you in the same breath.
He said he helped me to make things right.
But sometimes, I wonder if justice and revenge are just two sides of the same coin. Sometimes, the people who say family is everything are the ones who treat you like nothing.
I used to think walking away meant giving up.
I used to think family meant loyalty no matter the cost.
But now I know strength isn't about who you keep close.
It's about who you refuse to let break you again. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed them publicly or forgiven them quietly?
Tell me in the comments.
Tap like if you love seeing underdogs stand up for themselves, and don't forget to subscribe for more real, emotional stories that hit where it hurts.